Welcome everyone to BoomerWorks. My name is Shira Lotsar. I am co-founder and volunteer of our organization. Our mission here at BoomerWorks is to inspire and empower professionals age 50 plus to re-career into self-employment. We offer monthly educational programs. We also offer monthly growth groups, which are peer networking sessions for you guys to share your thoughts and your ideas with each other and your challenges. But tonight is an educational program, Digital Content Marketing 201, which is actually a follow-on to Digital Content Marketing 101. And for those of you who may not have been here for our first presentation, if you simply go to boomerworks.org, go to our Training Center tab, then go to Marketing Your Business. You can scroll down and you will see the second video down is Digital Content Marketing 101. By Jon DeNunzio, who is back for more. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Jon. He's going to give us a great presentation. We're going to have a time for breakout sessions. Now, depending on how many people are here, we might go into breakouts, but if we're still a small crowd, we might just stay here, and that's fine, just to kind of talk things through and get your content marketing ideas rolling. And we also are fortunate to have Lynn Strang with us, who is a fellow writer journalist, who hopefully, Lynn, you can chime in here with some of your pearls of wisdom. So we should have a great conversation. So with that, Jon, feel free to get things going. And I want to make sure that, you know what, I'm so sorry. I guess I did not have put screen share. All right, here you go. Jon, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen here. And all right, we're live. Okay, welcome. Today, we're going to dig deep into what makes content marketing really effective. And I'm going to share some tips and tricks on using these concepts, some actionable tips and tricks on using the concepts to help your business grow. If you have questions at any point, put them in the chat. I'm happy to stop at any point and address questions. This is me. I'm Jon DeNunzio. I run Squarely Digital, where I do online marketing for small businesses and nonprofits. I'm a former journalist who worked for almost 18 years at the Washington Post, and I've taken that obsession with high quality content that I learned and honed there, and I've applied it to help my clients in the marketing field over the past 8 years, working online, doing digital marketing for, again, small businesses and nonprofits. A few months ago, as Shira said, I gave a Content Marketing 101 talk for BoomerWorks. In it, I explained the basics, the theory and the key steps in creating effective marketing content. Today is the 201 talk. I'm going to focus on the approach that makes it all work. Now, I know that Star Wars Day was a couple days ago, but in a shout out, if there are any Star Trek fans here, I have a prime directive on content marketing. And that prime directive is put the customer first in your content. When you do that, you reach the prospects you want to reach, you encourage repeat visits to your website, you build expertise and trust, and you improve your business's visibility online. And that leads to great things like more leads, more customers, and more revenue for you. When content marketing is done right, in time, your website becomes a lead generation machine. That's the goal. You've produced enough content, and there's all kinds of great stuff on your site, so people come, they kind of over time digest the important parts, and then they fill out that magic form and says, hey, let's talk. I'd like to get a proposal or whatever it is. Before I get too far into the presentation, let's quickly go over what content marketing is, kind of a really quick recap of that 101 presentation I did. The Content Marketing Institute, which is a website that has some great free resources, by the way, has a good definition of content marketing. They say content marketing is a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. I like that definition a lot. Some keywords in there for me are valuable, because you're providing value to the people who are reading your content, and you're consistent. As I'll talk about a little more later, the more consistent you can be, the better with content. Once a week, once a month, whatever your cadence is, stay at it. I break the process of producing marketing content into 5 steps. They are: 1, identify your ideal customers and their needs. 2, generate content ideas that focus on the benefits and results and address each stage of the buyer's journey. And we'll get into that shortly. 3, write copy that converts. 4, perform a thorough self-edit. And 5, anticipate and prepare for the next steps. We're going to concentrate today on steps 1 and 2. This is when it pays the most to be customer-centric. So again, those steps that we're going to concentrate are identifying your ideal customer and their needs, and generating content ideas that focus on benefits and results and address each stage of the buyer's journey. We'll start with the idea of defining your ideal customer. To do that, you need to figure out who they are, what urgent problem you solve for them, what questions are on their mind as they hunt for a solution. Those are the key things to look for. When you define your customers, you know who you're writing for. It gives you context, right? It helps you, put you in the right place as you're writing. You know exactly who's listening as you're kind of talking, so to speak. These are your ideal customers, so it's okay to fantasize a little bit. In an ideal world, this is who you're doing business with. Think about things like who makes a good customer for you and who doesn't. From your experience, who among the people you talk to is most likely to buy from you, and what are they like? What have you learned from current customers? Think of those that you have who make you say, gosh, I need more customers like them. Those are the kind of people you want to fashion ideal customer descriptions around. And who recommends you, and who do they recommend you to? All these things will help you come up with a good idea of your ideal customer. Once you've done that, you can get a little more practical. Turn those ideas, those fantasies, those dreams into customer persona descriptions. HubSpot, which is a big, content marketing and inbound marketing, they call it, platform, and they sell software and they give a lot of advice, and a lot of it's really good advice. They define customer personas as a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer based on market research and real data about your existing customers. And they add, when you're creating a persona, consider including things like customer demographics, behavior patterns, motivations, goals. All of this helps you create a relevant content and write in a voice that's appropriate for the context. That makes sense. When they come in, if your ideal customer is a business person who's well up the chain in a big organization, you might have a certain level of formality. But if your ideal customer is someone different, you might be very casual with your content. It also helps you decide where your customer persona helps you decide where to promote your content too, right? Are they people who are going to be on Instagram and Instagram is going to help you market, or are they people who are downloading white papers, that sort of thing? Now, there's a lot of talk about detail in creating customer personas. You do a little Googling, get advice. People say, be super detailed, get as detailed as possible on your customer personas. I agree to an extent. You can get too detailed too. I say, think about the things that are important for your industry, your product, your service, and your customers, and get detailed about those things, but not everything. So things like age, a job title, a job responsibility, college degrees, favorite social media platform, music, listening habits, any of that could be important, but they may not be, and you've got to judge for yourself what's really important. Here's an example I made of a persona, and this is kind of the way I go about them. It's not it's detailed, but not overly detailed, I'd say. So imagine you sell chocolate chips to cookie companies. You're the chocolate chip vendor for some of the biggest cookie companies in the world, maybe even. Here's a persona for an ideal customer. Now, the first thing I will say about my personas is if you look up other people's examples of personas, they always have cutesy names. This person might be Charlie Cookie, or I don't know, Sam Samoa or whatever. Samoa is a Girl Scout cookie, but anyway, you get the idea. I don't waste time with cutesy names and things like that. I want to concentrate on what's important. What do I need to know about this person to market to them? The things I do have here, like job title, age range, their frustrations, desires, whether they're price conscious or not. All those things are the things that are going to help me understand what their problems are, what they really need, what content I should be creating to appeal to them, that sort of thing, if that makes sense. Once you know who you're marketing to, And that the things we've just talked about will really help you. If you create good customer personas, you're going to know. You want to look for ways your product or service aligns with them. Specifically, you need to know why they hire you, and put hire in air quotes. The concept of hiring a product or service comes from the idea of jobs to be done. There was an influential article in the Harvard Business Review, which I think it was really good. And they write, when we buy a product, we essentially hire it to help us do a job. If it does the job well, we hire it again. So the reason we create customer personas and think about the jobs to be done is so we can zero in on your customer's reason for buying. This is the guiding principle behind all the content you create. Their reasons for buying, not your reasons for selling. Take, for example, an apartment management company. They might think, hey, we just renovated our gym and it looks great. We need to write a blog about that, put up a photo gallery about that, that sort of thing. But if they focus on what their potential renters want, kind of do a little research, thinking, talking to people, they might discover most of their potential renters are thinking, I just want to live close to the metro. So that's what they should be marketing about. What their buyers, what their potential customers want to buy, not what they really are dying to sell. When you have a firm grasp of why customers choose you, it changes how you market. Once you've identified these things, your ideal customers, the urgent problems, all these things, you can get more granular. I want to dig into at that point, what questions are they asking? What do they want answered when they're starting the shopping process and going through that process of deciding to buy? They might be asking questions, along the lines of, where is this problem I'm having where does it come from? How much does it cost to fix? What are my different options to fix it? What company is going to be best? All these sorts of things, and there are different kinds of ways they'll ask them, and different kind of variations of ways they'll ask them, and related questions they'll ask. To find out exactly what they're asking, this is the time when you're going to do most of your research. There are a lot of different ways to uncover these questions. One way is talking to your customers, the customers you already have. Why did they choose you? Why did they stick with you? You really want to know that. Another way to get at these questions that they're asking is review sales conversations you had. What do potential customers ask when they're sizing you up? A third way is do your own research. I have a client, for instance, who's right now is running a survey to get this kind of information for himself. He's asking customers and people who are not customers but are in the field to kind of talk about what their frustrations with certain products are and what their needs are. And he's offered incentive for them to participate. In this case, he said, if you participate and you want it, I'll send you the full report when I'm done. Here's the survey, here's all the results. But you don't have to do that. You could offer a $5 Starbucks card, right? Something like that to get more people involved and learn more about your potential clients or customers. A fourth way at getting at these questions is looking at competitor reviews. This is kind of a sneaky way that I learned and I like to do. What online, when you go to reviews of the products and sort of like your competitors and what they offer, what do people rave about? What do they wish they were getting? I did this recently for my niche, for digital marketing agency, and I found a few themes which I thought were really interesting. A lot of the positive reviews would say things like, they understand our business and our market. A lot of the negative reviews included stuff like, they don't meet deadlines. That came up again and again. They're late. They don't meet deadlines, etc. So those reviews told me exactly, really specifically, what people are looking for in my niche. So I don't have to create marketing content that just says, work with me. I'm a digital marketing agency. I can say I'm a digital marketing agency that will understand your business and always meet deadline. Just being able to say that is going to connect with more people, right? And make my product a little more easier to sell. You can also dig into data online. There's a lot, obviously we're in an online world and there's so much out there to find out what's on prospects' mind. So this is a screenshot from a paid SEO tool. SEO is search engine optimization. This is a paid tool I use called SEMrush. I wanted to look into what the top questions people search on related to exterminators and mice. So if they have an issue in their house with mice, what kind of questions are they typing into Google? And you can see on a chart like this, this tool gives you the average number of searches per month in the US for each of these questions. And this right-hand column, KD percentage, is keyword difficulty. How difficult on a scale of 0 to 100 is it to rank, to basically get in the top 10 on Google for these questions? So the easiest one is when to call an exterminator for mice, with only a 56.99 keyword difficulty. And it has the same, it has comparable volume to these two above it, which are harder and a lot more than the ones below it. So that's good information to know, right? You can craft some content around this when you learn these questions. If I'm that exterminator, I'm like, oh, I need to write a blog post about when to call the exterminator. That's a paid tool, like I said, but there are free tools out there as well that can work and give you a lot of this information. Google Trends, which is Google's free tool, is there. You can look up the relative popularity of search terms there. Again, taking an exterminator example, if he's not sure if it's better to write headlines about, in articles about mice extermination versus pest control, just trying to, sometimes the terms that people use are different, right? Exterminator versus pest control. Plug it into Google Trends and see. Google Trends here shows me that mice exterminator, which is blue, is slightly more popular over time, but the graph also tells me that it fluctuates and it's not, it's not a slam dunk. But yeah, if I had to choose, I'd use the word mice exterminator as opposed to pest control mice, or that term, or those concepts. Google does it, it used to be, and I should say this now about keyword research. It used to be that keyword research really involved getting exact terms and using as many of the exact terms in a certain frequency and things like that to get Google's attention. Google's gotten much better at understanding what, a phrase, a sentence means. So if you're in the ballpark, it's going to get the gist. So that's enough of a difference. Pest control versus exterminator is enough of a difference that I would distinguish. But exterminating mice and mice exterminator, Google now treats those pretty much as the same term. If that makes sense. One more free way to do a little bit of research on what your ideal customer might be asking or researching. Just type in a Google search. I did a search for mice exterminator, scrolled down to the bottom of that first search result page, and it gives you 8 related searches. These are things that are typed in a lot into Google along the same lines. So down here at the bottom of the first column, when to call an exterminator for mice. That's a real nice blog topic idea if I'm an exterminator. Yeah, it's obviously a popular search term. It's going to give people some ideas, some information that they need to start to solve their problem. That's valuable free data right there at the bottom of the Google search page. All of these methods help you understand what your customer wants and needs. And that's how you really should focus your marketing, as I keep saying. So everything I've mentioned on the last few slides are forms of market research, of course. And if you want a little more research on more information on market research, Boomerworks has a great training video on their site. If you go to boomerworks.org, click the Training Center tab and drop down to market research, you can see the videos. And I recommend those if you want to get deeper into this part of it. So we've gotten to this point. You've thought about who your ideal customer is, what they really need and want that you offer, and how they phrase that, how they start to come to how they ask the questions and think it through. So what do you do next? Well, once you understand these things, it's time to think about the buyer's journey. The buyer's journey is a framework for understanding the steps that they take from the moment they start thinking about a purchase to actually completing the transaction. Typically, it's divided into 3 stages: awareness, consideration, decision. Kind of makes sense, right? You're aware that you have a problem. You start to consider different solutions, and then you make a decision. I suggest that all that research that you've done up to this point, you take and put it in one of these 3 buckets. This question they ask is a consideration question. This topic is a decision question. This is awareness content. In other words, how do they view their problems and what questions are on their mind in each stage of this journey? Now, how do you do it? I'll come up, here's an example. Imagine Ivan, he owns a small IT service business. he started to find his accounting tasks to be overwhelming. And he's thinking, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. I can't do this myself anymore. At first, I have a chart here. Think about, and some hypotheticals of what Ivan might be going through in each of these stages of the journey. At first, he's in the awareness stage. He knows he has a problem, but he doesn't know the dimensions of it and how it's all going to get solved and things like this. So he might be thinking, why do some companies like mine outsource accounting? You know, he's just kind of getting that feel for it. Does it happen? How does it happen? What's it all about? The goal in this awareness stage is to help readers like Ivan understand the root of their problem and just introduce solutions. So you might write the answer might be, or the topic, the thing you write in this stage is 5 reasons to outsource your business's accounting. He's like, oh, yeah. Ivan starts to think, oh, these are good reasons to do it. These match my criteria. I'm more interested. Tell me more, right? In the consideration stage, he's starting to think, can an outsourced accounting company offer me these things like a CFO service or this or that? Starting to really think what's going to work for me. Because consideration stage content in general helps readers zero in on the best type of solution for their problem. So an example of consideration stage content, whoops, did I get back? Yeah, good. An example of consideration stage content that might appeal to Ivan, the IT guy, is 5 benefits of hiring an outsourced CFO service. This is classic consideration stage content, tells you exactly, tells you a lot about what kind of solutions are going to be effective, if that makes sense. Then finally, when Ivan moves into the decision stage, he's figured out, in consideration stage, he said, oh, this is what I need. Now, who's going to do it for me, right? So he's wondering if he's at your website, he's wondering, is this company for me? And so he might be asking, how has this company Accounting Outsourcers LLC helped other companies like mine? He wants to see real world examples of how it works and what they do and that sort of thing. And that's what decision stage content does in part. It helps the reader see exactly what you do, helps get them across the finish line and convince them that this is the kind of business that they want to work with. So a sample for decision stage content, sample headline, here's a success story, how we help this company grow its revenue by 25%. Success stories, case studies are great decision stage content, right? Because from your own experience, when you're close to making that decision, if you see social proof that it's worked for other people, that's going to help convince you to buy. This is an important concept, so let's dig deeper into some other examples of content that works in these different stages. Here are 2 more examples for the awareness stage. If you're a daily money manager, you might be writing in the awareness stage content like how to help an aging parent with their finances. Real general feel to it, right? This content is meant to get the reader thinking about how they'll solve their problem. It helps them make more educated decisions and starts to build your reputation as an expert. It's not very salesy content. Prospects in this stage are usually not ready to be sold to. They're just investigating. They're just starting that journey. In the consideration stage, the content's about the types of solutions, not specific solutions, not company X or buy my gold level plan. It's more about the types of things that they could get to solve their problem. For instance, if you're a WordPress designer, you might create some content that's about 5 problems with using WordPress for an e-commerce site. You're telling them, look, if you want WordPress, this is what you should know about it. There's some problems, but you probably will also work in there. Here are the things it does well. The chiropractor might produce content that is a comprehensive guide to back pain, which starts to get at those different ways, to treating back pain, gets at the different ways that they can solve their problem. And that's exactly what consideration stage content is. It's also worth noting that consideration stage content sometimes contains cost information. How much do certain solutions cost, whether it's your solution, your competitor's solution, et cetera. As the prospect is figuring out how to solve their problem, cost is a big factor to them, right? You can't ignore it. In the decision stage, final stage here, you want to close the deal. So you want the reader to see exactly what your product or solution does and why it's right for them. So examples like this, if you're an interior designer, your decision stage content might be something like how we turned this 1970s kitchen into a modern culinary hub, right? This is another, success story. The landscaping company might offer a step-by-step guide to how we care for your yard. So they may make it downloadable content, and it's really in depth. So the potential client is like, oh, they do this and this and this, and this is exactly what I want. They move the situation. I think that kind of covers the decision stage. Yeah, okay. So when some people see these kind of examples, they hesitate. They have objections to putting some of this information out there publicly. They're like, they say things like, that's an interesting blog post idea, but it doesn't sound like it's going to lead to a sale. Or I don't want to mention the cost, how much mine costs. I don't want to scare people away on my website. Or they might say, are you really recommending that I mention my competitors on my website? And yeah, sometimes I do recommend that, laying it out for the prospects and saying, hey, my company is good at this, but if you need that, there are other companies for you. This is how I respond to those objections usually. The sales objection, not all content is salesy. Prospects, like I said earlier, are not always ready to be sold to. You can scare them away that way. They're just figuring out what they need and what their problem is, and then you say, hey, buy from me right now, and they're like, I don't want to be sold to, so they're gone. The cost objection, I think it's a good idea to mention how much you cost, even if it's a ballpark figure, so you can weed out the prospects who can't afford you. There's no point in having them continue to come back to your website, eventually call you or send you an email or whatever, when there's no chance they're going to do business with you because they can't afford you. So that's good information to have out there. And then I say you may as well mention your competitors because your prospects are going to research them anyway. This is the internet. That's what people do now. And if you offer honest appraisals of what else is out there on your website, you build trust, you build your expertise and credibility, and it allows you to frame your competition in a way you want to frame it. So that's not bad either, right? So you've done all this research. You've created customer personas. You've thought about the buyer's journey. You've thought about different ideas for each stage of the buyer's journey. So what I suggest doing next is for every customer persona you have, make a grid. And here are my content ideas for each stage, each of the 3 stages. I have these ideas here, these ideas for consideration stage, these ideas for decision stage. And then you take those ideas, put them on a content calendar. Decide that, I think I need to blog 3 times a month, whatever it is, and start filling days. I'm going to publish this one on Thursday. I'm going to publish this one 2 weeks from Thursday, et cetera, et cetera. It's really important that you make a plan and you stick to it. The online environment rewards consistent production. Your first 5 pieces of content might not produce huge results, but when you get to 15, 20, 25 pieces, the benefits are often exponential. It snowballs. And why? Readers and Google start to notice as people come to your site, stay on your site. They found one thing they like, and then there's like, oh, there's a link to another thing and another thing. As their visits get longer, Google rewards you. As Google sees that you have more subject matter expertise, their algorithms reward you. Again, it snowballs. It's definitely worth putting in the time if you're doing it right. This sounds like a lot of work, I know, and it can be, but I have good news. You can and should make repurposing content part of your strategy. Think, for instance, things like this. If you do videos, a video script can become a blog post. A series of blog posts can be combined and made into a downloadable white paper. If you do email newsletters, one edition with links to other interesting content can be chopped up into a bunch of social media posts. An old case study that you have on your website, you can update it, go back to that customer, what's new now, and refresh it. All these things are ways to get new content out without having to put in that amount of work that it takes to get one brand new piece out of the blue onto your site. And then if you're going to do all of this, this is like table stakes. You have to track your results. Use a tool like Google Analytics to track things like your page views the engagement, time on page, length of visit, that sort of thing, traffic patterns. Where do people land on your site? Where do they go? When they hit that content, you have decision stage content for certain customers. When they hit that content, what do they do next? Did they go to the contact us page? Did they fill out the form, or do they bounce off the site? These are the things that are going to tell you, am I doing it right? Am I, or, is there a problem? And then, take what works, keep doing it. Take what doesn't work, stop doing it. That simple. That's really it. That's the whole presentation. And we have a breakout session planned now. So before we go to that, are there any questions before I talk about the breakout session? I know that's a lot of material to go over all at once.
I have a quick question. Sorry, I was a few minutes late. I got tied up. That was great information. When you're looking at the Google Analytics, I as well like to look at the behavior and not only like where do they come onto the site, but where are we losing them? Like, is everybody leaving on this particular page? Is there another really key analytic that you like to look at to understand how to make the visitor do more of what you want them to do?
Make them do what I want them to do. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, I think this kind of answers your question, is I like to look at the landing page report in Google Analytics, especially if I set it just to organic traffic, because that gives me a good idea of what people Googled to get to me, because you can't always get exactly what they Googled, right? But that's one thing. So I know they came, and the first page they hit was this kind of interior page. It's a very specific topic. They had to Google something about that. So that tells me something about my search success and what they were doing, but that doesn't quite answer your question. You want to know what else tells you, getting what, what I like to do? If you know how to do it, set up like with Tag Manager or something like that, event tracking, like certain links, certain buttons. Do they click on this button or that button? How far do they scroll down on this page? If I have a long piece, I might put scroll tracking on the page and see how far they've gotten down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, is that like the heat mapping thing that people are doing?
It's simpler than heat mapping. Heat mapping tells you all the more clicks here, less clicks there, all that sort of thing. Scroll depth is simply, you can set up percentages and say, on this page, I want to know how many times people scroll 25% of the page, 50% of the page, 75, etc. And they're like events in Google. Once you've set it up, it hits events. And I have a client, for instance, that has a landing page that has 3 distinct segments, and they match up pretty well to 40%, 60%, 80%. So we can tell how many of these people get all the way down and look at all 3 if they make 80%.
Thanks so much, John.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay. Well, let's do the breakout. So how many people do we have here? Are we going to do breakouts, or are we going to do it all in here?
We've got about 9 people. And so why don't we do this? I'm going to go ahead and, well, first, once John, you'll explain the session. I'll go ahead and break people out into groups of 3. Now, just so you know, the way that this breakout room goes, it might try to put me or John in a room. So I'm going to, which means that since we're not going to join, there might only be 2 people. So it's possible that I will actually quickly move you somewhere else. So just hang on for 30 seconds in your room, and I'll try to sift and sort. And then we're going to be in the breakout rooms for 15 minutes. We'll come back to the main stage, and then John will actually lead us into a kind of a call out session, right? If a couple people want to raise their hands and share with the group some of their ideas, then John can do a little bit of spot coaching. Okay. Right. So John, you want to explain the breakout?
So here's the goal for each of you in the breakout room. Talk amongst yourself, like one of you to start and say, here's my business and here's my ideal customer. And this is one piece of content that I think, based on what I learned today, one piece of content that I could write in the future that would work for one of the stages, right? So you come back at the end of this, each of you should come back with a headline. This is the piece I was going to write. I think that, what do you think if I wrote, for instance, I wrote 5 common questions people ask us about installing AC units for, you're an HVAC company and you ask that. That's a great thing to come back and say, we think this would work for the decision stage. Does that make sense? Everyone got it? Okay. If there are no questions, understand the goal. Shira and I will be here when you get back, and we'll be very excited to hear some of your content ideas and to workshop them amongst ourselves.
Okay, great. Here we go. And John, you don't have to accept your join button.
Should I stop screen sharing, you think?
Yeah, at this point, yeah. Karen and Olga, I have you in room 1, and Julie is there by herself now. So if one of you wants to join in there with Julie. There you go.
There you go. You were right. It was about a half hour, wasn't it?
Yep. Yep. And we're still recording, just so you know.
Well, should we just be quiet?
Yeah, I think so. And for those of you who are watching the recording, we'll be back into the main room in about 9 minutes.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Did you pop out of the breakout room?
No, I'm on both because my computer, my tablet died, and then now
Okay.
my computer,
I'll put you back in there.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
having problems. Yeah, I think it's
There you go. So you can click on the join button again to get back in there. So John, they're going to be back in 15 seconds. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that was a productive breakout session. So we're I'm gonna turn this back over to John so he can lead you guys in a discussion and see if anyone would like to share their ideas. So John.
All right. Yeah. How did it go? Does anyone want to start with by volunteering the headline for their business they came up with, the headline and tell us your business, what you do, who your ideal customer is, and what the headline is. Let's start with that. Who wants to start? Anyone? William.
Hi. My headline, and thank you to Kathleen Dorsey. There you go. She was tremendously helpful. Helped crystallize some things in my mind that I had no idea I needed to have there.
Great.
Okay, so the headline is
tell us your business first. Tell me what your business is and what you do first. Sorry.
Well, what I will be doing, I did spend several years with the government as an auditor and also as a program evaluator for major capital infrastructure initiatives. And one of the things that I found particularly interesting was understanding risk. And so that's the sort of thing that I want to continue in, but in the private sector. So Kathleen offered a good idea for a headline, and it's called Hidden Risks. And basically, risk is everywhere. Let's see. Since I worked for risk analytics for the government for so long, I now want to go into the private sector, particularly in large organizations, perhaps manufacturing organizations, large corporations that have big complex processes. Mm-hmm. And it can be manufacturing. That would probably be where I would want to focus, because a lot of businesses that do such things as manufacturing, where they're moving commodities or moving objects as well as people, there's a tremendous potential for risk there. And what happens is that we get so close to what we're doing that sometimes we don't see it any longer, where the risk is, and it can be very costly. So I would approach it from both doing the analysis and also training other people for the corporation, people that work there, to do the same things once I leave.
Gotcha. You're a risk consultant or a risk analyst. Yes. Yes. Gotcha. Okay. So that's your business, and your ideal customer is someone in these big organizations, or is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there more to it than that, or is that?
I would like to focus in the, shouldn't even say like to, I would focus in the manufacturing sector.
Good. Okay. And then your headline that the first piece of content you're writing about is, you said it's taking risks is your headline?
It's hidden risks. So basically risks that you have, that your business faces, that you might not know about. That's exactly right.
Right.
If I could just ask a question, William. So who specifically in a manufacturing company would you be targeting? What are which eyeballs, right, would you want to be reading this post? In other words, who has the perceived risks that would consider it to be, where they would consider that to be enough of an urgent problem, that hopefully they will consider buying your solution. Okay.
Right, and if I can add on to what Shira said, it's also who you eventually will be dealing with, right? Who will be you'll be talking to about the consulting that you want to do with them, right? Mm-hmm.
Who's the decision maker?
Yeah, exactly. It's good that we have met like this, because I had not thought of a specific business. So this is certainly helping my thought process.
Well, that's good. And that's that you put that on your to-do list, right? Of okay, figure out in these types of businesses, who is the person most likely to make the transaction, to be investigating it, et cetera, and then you're going to appeal to them. Mm-hmm. That's okay.
And another way to think about this, William, is who's feeling the pain?
Yes.
Who's feeling the pain, right? And there's a difference between somebody who feels that they need to have that pain point go away, and someone who also wants to plunk down good hard-earned money to solve it.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of us who have needs. I mean, you know, a lot of people want to lose 20 pounds. That's a need,
Yeah.
right? But until you want to go, you know, maybe it's a woman and then she wants to go fit into her wedding dress. Well, then it becomes something, I'm going to go to Weight Watchers, right?
Yeah.
And we'll pay money to, right, to have
Yes.
the problem solved. And so be thinking first, who's feeling the pain,
Mhm.
then under what conditions would they actually want to pay money to have the pain go away? And that can get you really specific, right? So maybe you would start with the actual problem. Now, maybe you don't have the name of the person yet, like you don't have the title yet, but you think,
Right.
this is the risk problem that I really believe that I can help solve. Now, who in the company would be feeling it the most to say,
Right.
I think I'm going to go out and look for somebody. Is that a certain department? Is that a certain level in the department? Could it be different people? And does it matter in terms of manufacturing, what kind of manufacturing company it is? I mean, all of those demographics will help you narrow to the point where your ideal customer persona sort of shows up.
Mhm.
And that's what John was talking about with the cookie company example.
Right. Right. Oh,
Right?
yes.
It's like, oh, okay, it's a cookie company. It's a manufacturing company. Well, who exactly am I talking to? Well, his example was a business owner. My example might be, I don't know, VP of R&D or something, right?
Right. Yeah,
Whoever
sure.
it is. Yeah. And then, okay, well, what are the problems? In fact, John, would you do us a favor? Would you mind pulling up your deck again and just going to that slide, the cookie company
The
slide?
cookie company slide, yeah.
Yeah, because there were some really interesting categories there for you to think about. Not only who the person is, but what are their problems? What are the problems they're trying to solve? If you can get super clear on that, then you can go through the awareness, consideration, and decision making. So what are so I said pain points, he said frustration, same thing. What's the frustration? So you could actually start with the frustration and then work your way back up. What's the frustration you're trying to solve? And then, who actually has it? It's probably a certain title or a certain department.
Right.
Right. What do they want?
The desires in this case are, what do they want to come of it? Once they get the solution, what's the result they want? And I think it might be helpful to note too, this is a challenge and an opportunity in content marketing when you're marketing to big businesses like you're talking about, William. The person who first investigates and is they feel the problem first and they're trying to figure out how to solve it might not be the decision maker, right? So you would have to create certain content for them, and then content that maybe they want to show their boss, right? They're like, look, I found a solution. Here's why we should do it, right? So you write different kind of content for the boss eventually, who has to pull the trigger.
Right. Because just because this VP of R&D, or maybe it's not a VP, maybe it's a director level, okay, who feels the pain, that might not be the person who cuts the check, if you will, or has the decision-making authority to procure your services. So you could be marketing to that director because that ultimately the director has the pain point and you want them to feel, hey, I got the solution to your problem. But to John's point, then that director's got to go make the case to their whomever it is, COO, let's say, right? And so that might be a different kind of a content. So it's a matter of really just sort of understanding how that world works to help you drive what kind of content. And then a whole other topic, which we really didn't get into today, and I think John sort of alluded to this when he says social media channels, and that is, where are they hanging out? Like it's one thing to just say, hey, I'm gonna write it and build it and they will come. Well, that doesn't typically happen. Just because you put an article on your website does not mean that people can see it. Of course not. So you have to go out and reach them. So are they reading certain trade publications? Are there certain social media channels? Are there certain networking groups, associations? Like where are these people hanging out, so that you can maybe drive your content that way? So for example, we know there's an association for everything. Literally, there's an association for everything. And especially at a local level, those groups, and I know, for example, Kathleen works for the Chamber. Chamber is the same concept, right? They have members. Oftentimes those groups want good content. they've got a newsletter, publication, whatever. But once you zero in on, hey, I'm attracting VPs of, CPG companies or agriculture manufacturing companies, whatever, those people hang out online here, here, and here. And so I want to go and get my content. Now that's a whole other conversation, but I just wanted you to see kind of the flow of it.
Right. Good.
Makes sense.
It does.
And the other thing I would say about your idea, William, you say hidden risks, right? And it's a tricky one, but it can be good, right? Because hidden risk, to me, that implies there's a problem, the problems that these people might experience, but they haven't quite put their finger on it yet. They haven't identified it. Like they don't know what they don't know, that kind of thing. But that, the opportunity to me there is a certain type of person is Googling that stuff and thinking about that stuff, right? The person who wants to get ahead, or the person who, wants to, for some reason has this bee in their bonnet to fix something in their company. They're starting to say, what are problems that companies like mine experience? So they're doing a more general search, and you'd have to think, okay, how's my content going to reach them? How am I going to craft it to reach them? And it's a different approach than the person who said, we have this kind of extruder on our plant floor, and I'm worried people are going to get hurt. And they're specifically going after those, querying those kind of terms, the terms around that idea, right? Injuries, workman's comp, etc. Right? So different queries, but just as long as you're aware of it, it can work. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yes. Thank you.
Sure. Good. I'm going to stop the share. Did anyone else want to add anything about William's idea? Give him any feedback or anything like that?
The only thing I would add is to make sure you think about a few keywords you can put into the headline. So hidden risks in manufacturing, whatever, like just have a couple of those important keywords that might pop up if they're searching for something in those keyword ranges.
Would you have to know the industry jargon?
Yes. Yes.
Like I would know, for example, I work with associations, and so I know that to use member terminology, not customer terminology.
Yes.
Right. And, one of the kind of cardinal rules of online marketing, and I do, besides content marketing, for instance, I do some digital ads, some search ads, the search ads you see on Google. And one of the cardinal rules there is if someone searches on a certain term, like cookie manufacturing, whatever it is, that's a bad example, but cookie manufacturing, if they see an ad with that exact term, they're more likely to click on it. And if they click on that, that exact keyword that you've chosen, and they click on it and go to a page, that page has the same words in bold type, cookie manufacturing, they know they've gone to the right place. So keywords are important that way as well. You just kind of that signal you're constantly sending to the reader, to the user, that says, yeah, we know what you want. This is what you want, and you're in the right place. This is what it, why that's why you're here.
Yeah. Don, I had this is Gary, I had a general question. You mentioned the level of effort involved to do this, which seems so logical. That's all often a big barrier for people. Do you have any tips on setting up a schedule, doing things like a calendar ahead, or how does one get sort of the discipline and to allocate a necessary amount of time to keep on top of digital marketing?
Yeah, I think that you have to, it sounds simple in a way, but you have to block out certain times that you're going to do it. Whatever you decide on the cadence that you're going to do it, once a month, every 2 weeks, whatever, make the decision and block off a certain amount of time to do it and stick to that and keep doing it. Even if you can't write, you can't complete what you want to complete in that hour you blocked off for it, at least do that and keep doing it. Because writing is one of those things that the more you do, the better you get at it, right? At least you're going to get faster and more, you're going to feel more comfortable with it. So I think it's keep at it, be disciplined about it, and don't let using another cliche, forgive me, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Don't slave over it, and just first time through, I usually tell people, if you're writing, just write, let it go. Don't go back and edit yourself for that first draft. Get it out on the paper. Then you can go back and polish it up, right? But you're going to be better off if you do that. It can be a really long process if you're like, type a few words. Oh, wait, that's not the right word. I go back. Wait, I don't have it. Yeah, etc. Get it out there and then get it on the page or in the Word doc or whatever, and then go back to do it. Does that help?
Mhm.
All right. Does anyone else want to volunteer the headline that they came up with for their next big piece?
Well, I'll just say one thing. William, I just sent you a LinkedIn invite because I'm also going after the manufacturing sector. It's in the chat.
Yeah,
Excellent.
in fact, I was typing my response when you just came on.
Well, John, I had a,
Networking happens on this call.
That's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah.
yeah, I got some good advice from Lynn. I do some pro bono volunteer work on WordPress website design, which is one of your examples. And you can get easily very technical in a hurry. And the lead that she gave me for awareness, which I think is good, is how to get the most out of your website. In other words, even though I specialize in WordPress, the typical problem, nonprofit is mostly the market. The typical problem is they have a website, but it's not doing very well. It's not well maintained. So they're sold on the idea of needing something, but it may not be working as well as it can. So how to get the most out of your website is awareness. And then I added consideration. It's very common to do pros and cons on the web. It's very popular. So do pros and cons of WordPress versus, and there are many other platforms, Wix, GoDaddy, there are a wide variety of very good platforms out there. Compare, contrast. WordPress, of course, in my opinion, offers strong advantages. And then my product that I've been doing volunteer consulting in is WordPress.com, which is a simplified version of WordPress.
Yeah.
It's lower cost, it's more sustainable. You don't need a special technical host. They have lots of training materials. And so that is the decision, is sort of the sell, is if you need a website and you buy into the prominence of WordPress as a dominant technology, a simple, sustainable way to get into WordPress is WordPress.com.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So would your audience for this, is this for your pro bono works or your audience is nonprofits for this?
Yeah. I mean, this may turn into a business at some time in the future, but yeah, just based on my volunteer work, it seems that the need is mostly small nonprofits and some entrepreneurs. You can do a certain amount of e-commerce even on a WordPress.com site. So I think I pretty much got the audience, the customer base defined, but the issue is how to reach them most effectively.
Correct. Do you know specifically, like we asked with William, who at the nonprofit is the one likely to be looking into this and doing the research and that sort of thing for?
No, it's a good point. These organizations tend to be very small. The same thing goes for a very small business. There's an owner involved. In websites, there's typically one person who's the administrator or is on the board of the nonprofit. So they tend to be very small organizations. So it's relatively easy to find who the key individual is.
I see.
But it's typically whoever is saddled with the responsibility of doing the website.
Right. Well, you might want to think about, if you went down this line of creating this content, if you're going to a small nonprofit, this one is written for the head of the nonprofit. Are they, even at that size, are they CEOs? I don't know, whatever you would call whoever leads the nonprofit. Am I writing for that person? And think how you would approach that versus am I writing for that, pardon me, am I writing for that staffer who's, like you said, saddled with website work? And how would you write it differently? How would you approach it differently?
Yeah. And that's the challenge, because you have to convince both. So
Yep.
Whoever's doing the work on the one hand, and on the other hand, there are people on the board who may know little or nothing about websites, but they know the end result. They want to get donations, awareness, community education on a given problem. So one thing I think I've learned in some presentations I've done is you need some generic, part of the content for this is not just a blog article. It may be a white paper as you get in the consideration stage. And in actually making the decision, I think I found out that slides, presentations help to get concepts across, but you have to actually show the product. You have to demo, well, what is this simple WordPress solution? Why is it simple? How can you generate a site and maintain it? So you have to actually show it.
That makes sense. Are you saying you have to do that for the board audience or for the kind of more the staff audience?
Well, I think it's kind of both. Matter of fact, my small group is very helpful. I've set up I actually have a presentation coming up with a WordPress, a meetup that does IT help for nonprofits in June. And actually there are three possible audiences. It's the generic nonprofit board member. It's the admin IT drafted person who's doing the work. And then a third are, you mentioned competitors. It's people in the space who are, they're website consultants, and they may or may not be working on my platform, but we may be complementary. There may be a role for a simple version of WordPress for a consultant who deals with more complicated WordPress websites, depending on demand. So yeah, there are potentially these three actors.
Okay. Yeah. The only thing I would add to that then is this, that be conscious of, like, when you're writing content, creating content. I give this disclaimer sometimes that I always say writing because I'm an ex-print. I started as a print journalist, so I say writing, but sometimes it's creating. You're making a video, you're making a podcast, whatever. But when you're creating that content, make specific content make one for that audience A, another one for audience B, another one for audience C. Don't try to lump them together and say, oh, if I write this way, I can catch them all in one. Because when that audience B gets to the part that's not about them, they're going to tune out, right? So make it, you're better chopping it up into pieces. And the only other thing I would say, your idea of how to get the most out of your website is good, but if you're pitching to nonprofits, what to them is the most? What benefit do they really want to get? And a headline like how to get more members, how to use your website to bring in more members, or how to get more donations from your website is a better headline, right? Yeah. And a better topic to hit.
How your website can boost donor engagement or something. Right.
And and this, I'm sure, Gary, when you're in web development, that's super competitive, so writing big general articles, you're going to be competing with all these things. But when you niche down and get into website benefits for nonprofits and for small nonprofits, you say, how a small nonprofit can get the most donations out of their WordPress website. All of a sudden, you have a really niche-y, valuable piece for someone, right? Yep. And it's easier to rank for. You're going to attract the audience you want.
And by the way, another little proverb here is, people in general, people like to hire specialists, not generalists. You've got a leaky faucet, you're calling the plumber, not the general handyman. So the more, John said niche, I'll say specialist, the more specialized you can get, more focused, you're going to be known as that guy. You want to be known as that guy or that girl, right? The person who can solve that specific problem. So go focus.
Good. All right. Okay. We have time for one more, you think, Shira?
Oh, absolutely.
Can I suggest one thing to Gary before we move on?
Of course.
For your meetup presentation that you have coming up, you might want to go onto the meetup website, whoever the host is for the meetup, and take a look at who has signed up to hear your presentation. And that way, you can probably get a feel based upon maybe titles or organizations that might help you figure out who's going to be in your audience. And that way you can tailor your content a little bit more specifically to who will be listening to you that evening, per the point we were making earlier about generalist versus specific.
Very good.
Sounds like something I should have done before I came on tonight, Lynn. All right, anyone else want to volunteer the idea they generated in their breakout session? Come on, one more.
I'll volunteer.
All right.
I'll be the guinea
Kathleen.
pig. So I have a masterminds company where business owners come together monthly to help each other make decisions and get support and just work through all their business issues for the month. So that's what kind of business I have. So I think the biggest issue is a lot of people don't know what a masterminds is and how it can help their business. So I was thinking to do one on how a masterminds can accelerate your business profits or your business in general. But I think that's what I kind of was thinking.
Right. So that is probably consideration stage content. They've decided, I assume a business owner who comes to a mastermind in the awareness stage, they're like, something's wrong. I need to improve something, right? Or I have bigger goals than I'm hitting. But then when they get to the consideration stage, they're like, exactly how am I going to do it? So this is one way they can do it, right?
Right.
That makes sense. Tell me about the ideal customer. Who's this targeted at? What are they like?
Usually they have been in business for 2 to 10 years, somewhere in that range. So they've gotten it off the ground, but they're just not quite where they want to be. Most likely they run it themselves. Sometimes there's a partner, but usually they're by themselves, and they're asking for business coaching. So that's what they know to ask for. And so when I see that to me means that they're ready for advice and they're ready to be open for some change. So that's normally, it doesn't really matter the industry. It seems as though it doesn't matter if it's male or female. I have all different age groups too. I have 20 somethings and I have 60 somethings, 70 somethings. So that really doesn't affect me too much. It's more of a mindset thing, I think, than anything.
Sure. Is it certain, well, I guess if solopreneurs, maybe it defines it already, but like certain income levels, certain revenue levels, or does that matter to you?
It doesn't. What matters to me more is that they're not happy where they are and they want to get to the next level. So that could be someone making, $30,000 a year. It could be someone making 300,000 or higher. It's just that they're ready to turn a corner and just need some advice and guidance.
Gotcha. Okay. So I understand who your ideal customer is, where they're in the consideration stage and how your mastermind can accelerate your business. You guys have listened to me talk enough. Does anyone have, what do you think? Would you refine that in any way? Would you say, no, that's perfect as is? Would anyone else have some feedback before I jump in with mine?
I'm just going to jump in real quick. Kathleen, I actually think you need to put in the concept of business coaching into your headline. Because if that's the concept that people are looking for, and you parallel business coaching with mastermind. So it could be something like, need business coaching, ? Try a mastermind group, ! That kind of thing, right?
Okay.
You're actually addressing their felt need.
Okay.
And mastermind, you would probably put in quotes or like quotes, right? Because they what's a mastermind? It's a concept.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to offer something?
I have a suggestion that maybe it doesn't fit here, but I'll go ahead and throw it out anyway. Kathleen, if you're not familiar with it, there's a group called the Success Alliance. Are you familiar with that group?
I am not.
That is the end-all be-all group for mastermind groups. And to get ideas about potential content marketing pieces that you might do for your mastermind group, I would suggest going and perusing that website. The woman that runs that, her name is Karen Greenstreet, and she does her own blog and posts about mastermind groups, where I think you could probably get some really good inspiration for.
Okay.
I'm not saying you want to plagiarize, but you might be inspired, or perhaps you might be able to model some of what you do based upon what Karen does, because she is the best authority I know on mastermind groups. I actually went through a mastermind training program that she did a year or so ago and think very highly of her. So,
Well, thanks for that, Lynn.
That's good. Thanks, Lynn. Kathleen, my feedback might be it's similar and a little different than Shira's. I think you could work with a headline like in an article like how your mastermind can accelerate your business. But if accelerate my business is the term that they use, that's how they talk and that's what they say. If it's not, find out what they actually say, how a mastermind can act, because they're Googling on that, accelerate my business, next level, get to the next level, whatever it is. And whatever they're thinking about, if you can speak their language and put it that way, that you're closer to success that way, right?
Okay.
So think of it that way. And then on the business coach side of it, to me, that's a separate one. And this is something I find myself doing a lot when I'm consulting with people about clients, is like, that's 2 ideas there, that's 3 ideas, and don't waste them. Don't put them all in one place. So take the business coach idea, and that's a separate blog post or white paper or whatever it is about business coaching versus masterminds or something like that, right?
Right.
And then use that there. And then, your ideas, we don't have an unlimited font of ideas. So when you have a good idea, don't waste it and combine it with something else, pull them out, use them,
Gotcha.
and make them, extend the life of your creativity as much as you can, I guess is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Sure.
One thing I just want to share is I came across a software, and John, you probably know it. It's called Lumen 5. And it's a software that will go into your blog post and use AI technology and create a video for you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm using it for one of my larger clients right now. And we're just starting to kind of get our feet wet with it, but it's very, very cool. So it's called Lumen 5. So when you were talking about before, like how you can repurpose your content, that's another way. And apparently it's not a lot of work to do.
Is it create like an animated video? Is that what it's doing?
No, it's pulling like stock pictures. So it goes through your content, pulls out what they think are like the highlights of your content, and then use stock pictures to accentuate the content. So it's not super fancy. You can't edit a ton of it, but it's really interesting. So I just wanted to bring it up in case anybody ever wanted to create video from your blog posts.
I think that's really cool. There are, in different parts of the content game, there are more and more automated solutions going out there. There's some that use AI to write ad copy based on a story you send it and things like this. My general advice for that sort of thing is use it, check it out, and compare it to your competition, right? And does it produce the quality that's comparable or where you want to be quality-wise? Because some of it could be really great, and or some of it can be, you're pleased with it enough and it's definitely competitive, then great, use it. If it's producing something that's quality, you're like, I'm not sure about it, and my competitor is obviously doing something better, then maybe you don't want to use it. And that might be obvious advice, but that's kind of how I look at those sorts of things. They can work. All right. Any other questions, comments, anything like that? No? All right. Well, should I wrap it up, Shira? What do you think? Is there anything else you want to hit before I go to the last slide or two?
I think we're good. Yeah, go ahead and go back to your screen share the
Okay.
last content.
Very good. So the last page I have here is I have some free resources that I offer if you want to talk more with me or work more with me or learn more about my approach and things like that. I have a guide on my website that you can download, and it kind of takes you through the steps of creating quality content. So what I think are the important things to hit, how to do it. I have an email newsletter, and believe it or not, I've been running my business for 8 years, and I'm an ex-journalist, and I love to write. And email newsletter edition 1 came out this week. I finally started an email newsletter. So, even someone who's into this can take their time and not quite meet their goals, but I've done it. So, consider it encouragement, I guess. I have an email you can sign up for them. I do content tune-up workshops, which are a little like the session we just did, roughly every month. A handful of people will come. It's a free session. And I ask, bring one piece of content that you've written, either you published already on your website or you're thinking about publishing. And beforehand, everyone reads everyone else's. And then in the session, we workshop it and we try to make them better. And then I also do free consultations, on content strategy. And you can just email me if that's something you're interested in. So those are my offerings, and would love to hear from any of you. Definitely drop me a line, and that's it. So yeah, if I appreciate the time. If you need that information, this slide deck will be available on BoomerWorks eventually, and you can go right to the slide 32 and pull that stuff off.
Yeah, and along those, first of all, thank you, John. Yay, great content. We appreciate you very much. And yeah, so speaking of where you can find this, so if you go back to our website, boomerworks.org, and you go actually to the training center, I'm actually going to be putting it right here in Marketing Your Business. Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of videos, and you'll see the Digital Content Marketing 101. We'll have the 201, right? This version under here. And then if you go down to the bottom, you'll see downloads. And one of the downloads will be the slides from this presentation. Okay, so that's where you can find it. And while we're on the site, just to for those of you who are just kind of learning our site, if you want to look at upcoming events, go to our meetups tab, upcoming events. That was today's. And then on May 20th, we have another growth group, which is a peer networking group. I think some of you have been on before. I also want to alert you on June 3rd, we have this great presentation called Using Productivity Tools Like a Pro. It's a small business owner named Laura Lebovich. She's been a great friend of BoomerWorks, and she has got so many fun little apps that'll just maximize your time. One of which she taught me, I'll just share it with you right now. It's called Boomerang, if you've ever heard of it. It's a plugin for Outlook, for Gmail, whatever your calendar tool is. And you can do all kinds of things. You can delay emails. It's a scheduling tool. It's just all kinds of wonderfulness. And she said she can't live without it. And it's just one of many, many tools she's going to share. So just feel free to come back on June 3rd for that. And for the rest of our activities, our events all through the year. So with that, and also if you have not yet joined BoomerWorks, joined our community, hit the join button here and sign up right here. And we will look forward to keeping you in touch with what's going on with us. Okay. All right. So with that, hope you all had a good, valuable session. Make sure to refer your friends and your colleagues. If you have 50+ professionals who are interested in self-employment, we are here to help for free. All right,
Awesome.
Everyone. Thanks again, John. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for having me, Shira. Thanks everybody. That was fun.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.